how to add a gritty special effect texture onto this photograph, which already has a little bit of grunge feel to it. So I'm just going to intensify that with some of the Photoshop special effects. So first off, I want to make a copy of my background, and then I might add a new layer and fill it with a like a 50% gray. So I can go edit fill and then choose 50% gray from the menu. And then I'm going to add some noise onto this. So I might first convert it for smart filters so I can come back and edit it later. Makes it non-destructive, whatever I do from here. Then I'm going to go to noise, so filter noise, add noise, and then you can kind of test the amount that you might want, more or less. If you take off monochromatic, it will have like reds and greens and yellows. We don't really want that. We want monochromatic. And then Gaussian will give it more of a random feel. So that simulates film grain and gives it sort of this grungy look to it. And then if you want to add more noise, you can always hold down the Option key, click and drag up, and then add a second layer of that noise in order to intensify that effect. Now we can add a blending mode of overlay onto this. So you can see the before and after. It just gives it more of a film grain look, more maybe vintage looking. You can also add some interesting adjustment layers. So if you go down to the bottom of the layers panel, you'll find some adjustment layer options where it looks like a little circle, half black, half white. So you can click on that, and then you can choose the color lookup feature. And this is pretty cool. Under here where you have some different options, the very first drop down menu, whoops, that you can click on. You can just kind of click through and see what some of these different filters will do. Sorry, not filters, adjustment layers. So like candlelight, it gives it different fall colors, makes it look more warm. What's futuristic bleak, that might feel more in keeping with the mood. So you can kind of click through and see which of these different filters gives the feel you want. It's a very quick way to change the mood in your photograph. You can access some of these different like Kodak filters, maybe some of the Fuji. You just have to click on them and see what they do. So I kind of like that one. You can see the difference before, after, just makes it a little bit brighter. And I might actually, let's see what Crisp Winter does, a little more cool. Whoops, where did I go? Double click on any of those adjustment layers to continue editing them. I like the fall colors. It gives it more of like a warm feel to it. And then if you wanted to add kind of a gradient, this is just another way to add like maybe a tone or a tint to your photograph, and then maybe have more of a vignette feel. You can create a new layer. And then another adjustment that you can try would be the gradient, or like a gradient overlay. And then be sure you change it to radial. And then I might choose reverse, so it's like darker on the outside. And then the gradient you can choose from any of these different color combinations. Maybe I'll like try green, like blue to green, blue to whatever this one is. Click OK, and then on this gradient fill, we could always like double click to change the color if we want to. You can see with or without, and then you can obviously change the blending mode. I kind of like the color burn, and then you can lower the fill to make it somewhere in between there, so that gives it more of that grungy feel in the shadows. You can try lowering the opacity too to find a happy medium for your special effects. So that's adding different adjustment layers and the look of noise to give more of a gritty texture over the top of my image, in addition to the grittiness of the noise that I added. I can incorporate maybe like a crumpled paper texture or some type of fabric or something to make it look even more like a tattered photograph, or something that's more old or vintage in some way. So if I go File, Place Embedded, I can add a photograph within this document, and I have this picture here of crumpled paper. So I'm just going to zoom out give myself room to line this up where I want it. So I kind of want some of these different, dimensional folds to fill most of my space. I can even rotate that if that looks better. Maybe zoom in a little bit more. Something like that. And then it doesn't fill my paper completely, so I can see what happens if I try and add and fill this space here. I have to, first of all, I notice that this is a smart object, so that means it's not editable, and I want this layer to be able to be edited. So I'm going to right click and go down to Rasterize Layer, so now that is just a JPEG. And I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool to select with straight lines this corner, and I overlap just a little bit what I already have. And now on this layer, I am going to choose the content aware fill. So edit fill, and then it should choose some of this texture to fill it in with, and it does a pretty good job on its own using the AI in Photoshop in order to fill in that space and complete my layer that I'm going to then apply a blending mode on in order to make it semi-transparent, kind of see-through. So like in the shadow areas, it did a pretty good job there filling it. So right now this is visible, invisible. I kind of want it halfway. You could lower the opacity, for example, and then you kind of see some of the paper folds and everything over the top of my figures. I want it to be more extreme, so I might go to the blending modes. This category here makes the areas that are dark, when they overlap, you can see the dark areas. It makes it so you can see the light areas, so the dark areas fall away. So wherever they overlap, they get lighter. Here it creates contrast between the different zones. So like hard light might be a little bit more believable. I kind of like linear light. That looks a little bit more like a torn photograph. And this category down here creates difference. So this would be like the opposite colors where they overlap. You kind of get a negative type effect. So that's probably not what I want. And you can try the other ones and see what they do. Okay, so I think I liked pin light, maybe vivid light. That looks, yeah, more like a tattered, torn photograph. So if I add hard light and then I lower the fill, you can see what it does. It makes it look a little bit more contrasty. Overlay is usually a good choice when you want some shadows to show through. And then screen might be a little bit too dark. So blending modes can help you blend your two images together in order to kind of show the best of each layer. I'm trying to find the right one here. Maybe soft light is just enough so you can see with and without it. Gives it more of that grungy, gritty look that you might expect from like an old photograph.